Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Yo, CEO of the experience agency, The Flash. Each episode, I always bring on a really interesting leader from business, marketing, entrepreneurship, you name it, and hear what they're up to, especially in this really unique time of COVID, and we're all trying to figure out what's going on. So I'm so excited to have Ania Wieczorek, who is the co-founder and head of business development of Bowery Analytics. So we're going to talk about what all the things are happening in DC, how she's been able to sort of pivot her business and challenges along the way. It's going to be a fantastic conversation. Take a listen. Hey, Anya.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going.
I'm currently in a happy tin can in Manhattan. How about you?
I'm in Arlington, Virginia, officially, right outside of DC, but not in a tin can, a little bit bigger space.
A touch bigger. Well,
Just
good.
a bit.
I'm glad. Well, even though this is a rather unusual times, the podcast stays the same, and the first question always stays the same. So, Anya, what was your first job?
Well, I'm so glad I listened to a bunch of other ones and had done my homework. So I'm like, man, I don't remember what was my first job. But my official first job was an ice cream scooper at Baskin Robbins in high school. And it was fantastic. I love ice cream. It was an amazing job. I worked in DC. I was so fancy taking the metro, going to work. And it was, how much bad can it be? You're serving ice cream to people who want to eat ice cream. Super fun.
What was your favorite ice cream? Because as someone who loves ice cream to this day.
Well, 31 flavors. So I will just say after a few months, I got sick of ice cream. And
I was going to say myself.
Yes, but it wasn't a problem because I just moved on to the ones that weren't ice cream, like other desserts that weren't made with milk, so I had ices. There was diversity there. It was incredible. I really did love it. I love ice cream. It was a bad job. I probably gained a lot of work, weight doing that work. And my favorite ice cream is rum and raisin.
Really?
I love rum.
Well, no,
Great way to start this podcast, but with alcohol. But that was a good one, and I like strawberry. I like all fruits, so there was a strawberry ice cream was great.
Well, we already been chatting that you love Jamaica, so I'm not surprised you love rum and raisin. Better question: do you like grape nut ice cream?
Not really. Once I
Me
found out
neither.
what it is, it's like, what? Cereal and vanilla? That sounds ridiculous. So
Well,
no.
here's the thing that's crazy about grape nut is that, like, Mama Fickle Milk Bar, um, has cereal milk ice cream.
Yeah.
And I at first I was like, wait a minute, that's weird. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is essentially grape nut ice cream, which I've been having since I was a kid. And when I had it, it tastes better than this. So
The
just
soft
saying.
serve is good. There's a spot in Soho that I do like that I go with my daughter, and it's really, really good. Or Soho, Chinatown, whatever. They're all blending in now.
Those.
Yeah, it's really good. It's ice cream with cereal. I know it sounds gross when you say it, but somehow it works with a soft
It
serve.
does work, but rum and raisin is by far one of my all-time favorites. I mean, if you can make it yourself, and an evil trick if you want to be like a true alcoholic is when you get the rum and raisin, you splash a little bit of Red Nephew on the top of it when you first get it, and then put it back in the freezer.
Ooh, that's a great trick. I'm going to try that. I have some from Haagen-Dazs right now.
Sis, that's what I'm saying. Hey, I am here to help. But because hey, we're at home. Why not do this stuff?
Exactly.
It's not like you're
Experiment.
driving anywhere. So,
That is true.
okay. So how do you go from being I'm sure, a phenomenal ice cream scooper, to being a co-founder at Bowery Analytics? What was that journey like?
Oh man, that was a crazy journey of obviously realizing I don't think I want to do this forever. I won't fit in a door at some point, so I probably should stop working at an ice cream store. And of course, being a child of foreign parents, college was always a thing. And my dad used to say, computers are the future. And I'm like, no, they're not. That sounds ridiculous. I grew up in the late 80s and early 90s, and I thought he was totally nuts. But at some point, I decided my career of wanting to be a diplomat wasn't going exactly in the right direction. Lots of in-betweens. I ended up at a telecom company. I went to school for business administration. That's how I just figured, like, okay, business will be in between diplomacy and IT.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I don't know, somehow it did at the time. And I ended up at the telecom and just got a really great opportunity. Interestingly, this woman who gave me a great shot. She saw me doing some technical training, and she said, you know what, you'd be great business analyst. Do you want to work for me? I'm like, I don't know what that even means. What's a business analyst? I had a great interview with her. I'll never forget her name, Dawn Frederick, still a friend of mine to this day. She said, I just really enjoyed listening to you doing the training. Had really great rapport during the interview, non-technical at all. She gave me a shot, and that's literally where my IT career began. And it progressed, through regular software development and working through project management, PMOs, and all of that. And eventually came to meet my business partner, working together on a project. And we said, we should maybe band together and do this. And yeah, that's how it happened. It was a really, really long journey overall when I think about that. We started 3 years ago, but it's been really an interesting step to get here.
Wow. And so you had someone who literally was just like, you know what? You're a good kid. I'm gonna give you a shot.
Yes. And I was really lucky in my entire life, in my career, that I've had managers over time in every job. I mean, the telecom industry was really challenging to work in as a young person, lots of hours and travel and so on, but at every step I had amazing managers. So she was the first one who got my sort of foot in the door from a call center, which is essentially where I was as a technical trainer, to go into the corporate world. But even there I had great managers who really sort of fostered me through, taught me leadership, but she was the first to really give me that shot of, like, I didn't even know what IT was. Like I said, I was like, computers are totally not the future. They're dumb. That's what I told my dad.
Wow. And you're like, how could I have been so wrong?
I mean, I kind of see how I could be wrong, but it was crazy.
Wow. And so what does Bowery Analytics do now?
Well, we focus, obviously, as the name implies, analytics, and we are actually based out of New York City, hence the Bowery name. Oh, I get that. Yeah, non-New Yorkers are like, what the
Don't get
heck?
it.
What is that? I'm like, oh, never mind. This is how you spell it.
There's a really good bar.
Yeah. And many other cool things about that neighborhood, right, and area. But we're really, focused on analytics and primarily marketing and HR analytics. So two areas that both understand data, understand the space, up until COVID, had funding to really utilize that and know that in order to make good decisions, you really needed to look at your performance. And it was not meant to replace you, but supplement you. Whereas some of the other industries or maybe other departments, it's a bigger learning curve to get folks to where they need to be. We do some digital transformation projects with companies, and that process of education is fun, but it's much longer than in the marketing and HR space. And that's really our primary focus with, again, doing strategy for many other areas of analytics spaces.
And so folks come to you and be like, we have no idea how to even figure out what's happening. And you're like, wait, here's what we do.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Sometimes, when we first started, one of the biggest things that was happening is people just assumed, because we do AI, sort of, the progression of analytics, then you go into some AI and machine learning, and you do predictive modeling and so on, which is so much easier to explain now, sadly, with COVID, right? Because people are talking about that. But at the beginning, people didn't understand that and didn't understand, well, first you start with data, but quite frankly, first you start with what do you capture and what do you want to capture? What do you want to report on? What do you want insights on? Are you thinking about that in those terms? And oftentimes there was a big mismatch about the information that they had available. When we looked under the hood, like, these systems don't talk to each other. You're not capturing the right information. You don't have data that's cleansed. So again, a lot of time, until you get to the meat of what they want to do, there's a significant amount of time spent on just having a strategy and a conversation about generally how you should pivot your business, not really pivot, but maybe clean up your data strategy internally before you can move into actual projects.
And I think that's really important now because I think, as I'm sure lots of folks are coming to you now because they're like, we have to pivot, but we have no idea what we've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. We're like an e-commerce company. How are you sort of helping those folks figure this stuff out?
It's really interesting. And now, obviously, there was a big of a lull at the beginning when everything was just like, oh my gosh, everybody just stop. It's like the world literally stopped in the middle of the day and stopped for quite some couple of weeks. And now businesses are realizing, okay, I need a much more sharper strategy, in that I can't just go on my gut and I can't just go on good enough, and I need to figure out what is happening. So when you talk about, e-commerce, who is my audience? Who's actually buying? Is it enough that I have impressions and people talking about me? Are they converting? Which channel is performing the best? They have some of that information, obviously, because I'm sure their marketing and most companies have been doing that. But again, up till now, things were maybe not as optimal.
Loose, right?
Yeah, right. Where now everybody's budgets have been slashed. So you need to do more with less. And a really good way to do that is to, again, use data as a tool. It's not a replacement of a human. It's simply a tool to say, all right, let me truly see what is happening and how does that help me as a human improve my outcomes. And so companies are coming to us, and we just started working in a couple of smaller brands right now that are actually women owned and amazing, doing amazing things in this time, will say we need to continue to hone in because we want to use our money wisely. How can you help us improve on our attribution rates, on our actual purchases, and how do we get to the right person? Like, it doesn't help that I send a million emails if only 3 people read them. I just want to send 3 emails to the 3 people that read them and want to buy my
Because they'll
stuff.
click, because they'll
Yeah,
buy, they'll actually convert.
exactly.
And what happens when people tell you and they're like, well, the data's not telling me what I thought I was supposed to actually see? And how do you deal with that as?
It's interesting. It's a psychological issue sometimes, right? And we prep people during the conversation. So we actually had a discovery call yesterday, and part of what we said is, 90% of the time your gut is right and your hypothesis is right, in that you think you know who your audience is and you are delivering to the right things, and you just need small tweaks and optimizations, right time to send the information, the right channel, and so on. But there are times where your assumptions are hidden. They're not necessarily completely incorrect because you know the data, you know your business, but there may be other areas that are hidden that you simply cannot see with a naked eye because you're thinking about something else. And an example of that would be if you're marketing your product to millennials, and then that's your demographic, and let's say they all live in big cities, and then you actually look deeper into your data and you say, how come 60 somethings are buying my product and they live in a rural area in Wisconsin? Should you rethink how you're reaching to them, because you could actually grow that even further because you didn't even know that that's a client of yours. You didn't dig deeper. I hope that makes sense.
No, it totally does. I think it's important because I think right now there's so many people who are trying to figure out how to rejigger their businesses to maintain and hopefully survive this obviously unprecedented situation. And getting smart about the data is one of the things, but I think oftentimes it can be very scary. Like, what are your sort of top 3 tips if someone couldn't call you, and when should they call you?
If the 3 top tips, they couldn't call me. I
Yeah.
mean, number one is definitely have some goals. So no matter what business you're in, however small, you could be like a cupcake shop or whatever you're selling online, one man business, one woman business. You should have a way to measure your success. And a lot of times people don't know how to do that. They like, I don't know, where do I start? I was like, I don't know, throw a dot, say this is your goal and see if you can achieve it and measure it over time. So number one to me is having a goal, period, so that you can assess yourself and adjust that goal if you need to, right? If you overshot, undershot, whatever. Number two is the ability to capture data. You really would be surprised how many businesses just don't do that. They don't understand, even big businesses don't capture the right amount of data. They capture data that's unimportant. Do you need to know someone's shoe size if you're selling, I don't know, hair dye? Is that an important aspect for you? I know that's a silly, like dumb example, but that barrier to entry for someone of buying your product, do you need that information and why are you capturing it? Are you hoping that one day you'll be selling shoes? That's fine, but if your primary focus is on something else, that's what you should be doing. And maybe the third aspect, I think, is sometimes people do think that they can do it all. And I understand that budgets don't always allow that, but educate yourself on what you should be doing well enough to also know when you shouldn't be doing it. So, I mean, I'm really good at knowing my boundaries, which I have a lot of. Like, I'm not good at a lot of things. For example, I'm not a great content writer. I really need a lot of help from folks. It's not my forte. I don't like it. Can I do it? Yes. It's going to take me 10 hours to do something that somebody can do in an hour. So know enough to understand the parameters, but invest your time wisely. You can always get more money. You cannot always get more time. And that was some piece of advice somebody gave me a long time ago. And I really value that. So know what you don't know and reach out for help. There are actually lots of free tools and information out there and others who are willing to help you. Reach out when you need to. Don't try to figure everything out on your own. So those
Yeah,
are
I think that's so true, and I think because look, there's so many different windows and doors you have to go through. Generally, as an entrepreneur, as we both know, much less you throw a pandemic on that, and then it's like, well, I have to save money. I can't go with experts. I've got to try and figure this stuff out on my own. It's like, well, no, you still have to make the investments with people who know what they're doing, because in the long run, that'll actually save you money versus you doing it yourself.
I totally believe that. I mean, you obviously have to prioritize on the things that we all have limited budgets. Doesn't matter how big or small of a company you are. So you need to prioritize where you need to do that, but you can't, you cannot simply do it yourself. And sometimes by not investing in what you think is important for your business, you're actually stopping your own progress. And you have to invest in order to grow or just to succeed, like just continue even. I don't know, growth is not always the number one thing. It's interesting. I listened to a really cool interview of a founder with Spanx today. And that was my biggest takeaway is if you're a small, medium-sized business, don't try to grow by leaps and bounds. Take your time. Obviously, you've got plenty of it now. Figure out what you need to do. Seek advice and see if this is something that helps you pivot.
Yeah, because it's funny, like, our business, of course, is obviously taking a hit because we're an events company, and so we can't do events. So it's like, okay, can I do a virtual events? It's like, yeah, but is there something else that I do that could be helpful? And that's part of the reason I wanted my online course, because I was like, well, people keep asking me all the time, how is it I have this insane network? How do I have this Rolodex? I've never actually sat down and talked about it. And I'm like, well, if ever there's time for me to sit down and talk about it, it'd be right about now. So I think it's the same thing. It's like, what are the things that you could be doing that you probably haven't had a chance to do before, but what just could eventually help fuel your business when that part of it comes back online?
Right. And I don't know if you've started to see this. I mean, obviously the event business is so much different because it requires in-person
People.
presence, yes. But I'm starting again because we started a new client and we have another discovery call coming up. I am starting to see people sort of peeking back out to say what's out there and what do I need to succeed. I know I find myself in a relatively important at this point area because I think data is becoming more valuable when you have to do more with less. And one way to be able to do that is to discover what you already have. Because it's one thing to have data, it's a whole other thing to now use it to help you, give you insights. But I am seeing people slowly coming out, and I'm hoping that, the slow recovery of the businesses that do have funding, that are willing to take those chances, but are going to be more measured, will be helpful for their own successes. They're not going to be just decisions made on the fly, like, let's just go do this. They're going to have to take their time, but I'm definitely seeing a slow peaking out of people like, let's go out there. But I do want to give you a plug for your awesome course. So I love networking. I have no idea how to do that offline, and it's like it totally paralyzed me. I'll be honest. In my business, it's part of what I need to do, is to do business development, to network, to talk to people. And it's like, oh my gosh, how do you do that? So your lessons are, I can't wait to like actually take that course and really learn more about that, because I think we all need it. And some of us just have that natural talent, which I think you do, and you're able to pass that on, and others need like step-by-step instructions.
Well, one, absolutely. I'm so glad that you want to take the class. Anyone who's listening, if you type in the code 1, you'll get 10% off for the 1 Degree of Connection course. But, part of the reason I did the class is, again, because I know people are like sort of stuck. Like, how do you network in a time of COVID? And so I literally sat down in front of my computer and like filmed how to do this, like how to say hello on LinkedIn, how to say hello over email, what you can talk about, how to sort of manage the Zoom overload, because it's really hard. And I think, it's hard for people to understand that they're stuck, and it's even harder to admit that you're stuck. So what I was trying to do in the course was get folks to realize that, like, yeah, this is weird, but we're all in this sort of weird soup together. So why not help each other? Why not connect with each other? Why not talk about, the funny thing on Netflix, or how our hacks for ice cream with rum, like those sorts of things are really going to be important for us in order for us to get through all of this. And it could be that, like, yeah, today's a day that you talk to one person and then you watch Netflix for the next 9 hours, and that's okay. Or the fact that, like, your friend who you thought would be checking up on you all the time isn't, but someone you have barely know is always on reaching out. Like, this affects people in different ways. So you have to sort of understand how to receive it and not feel like you're doing something wrong. And that, like, no, there are no rules here, and everything's, flipping all the time. So you're not beholden to anything, and it's just one step at a time.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, the only other thing I'll say about this whole networking thing, that for a small business that has been helpful for me, is kind of, I guess, is that I feel like I'm sort of on the same playing field as somebody working, in Accenture or IBM, because they're stuck
They
at home
can't fly.
too.
They can't. I was saying to somebody the other day, like, I don't know how the people from, like, Accenture and Bain and BCG, how are they surviving being home?
Yeah.
Because, like, they've never been home this long ever. They live on planes.
Right. And they have to figure out how to do that connection. I am definitely a face-to-face person. I love one-on-one meetings. I love face-to-face. So I can imagine it's tough not to do that. It's tough for me, but then also constantly traveling is, there's, I'm sure, a plus side to that, right? Of like, thank God I don't have to travel all the time. But I think most of them like it, right? That's why they do it.
It takes a certain kind of person who wants to have that life, or have that life for X number of years. And so to now all of a sudden be grounded, also, learning how to adapt into the new world. Like, this becomes I'm sure you're having the same thing I do with, like, well, I take people to dinner, I take people to lunch. Like, you want me to, like,
Yeah.
sit with you in Zoom? What?
Right. And look at you eat.
Let me watch,
Gross.
watch you have a cocktail? Like, okay, sure.
But it's amazing how we've adapted, right?
Mhm.
Because at first I was annoyed and I'm like, I guess I have nothing else to do. I should do that.
Well, it's interesting. I actually deliberately was taking my time with everything because I saw all these events coming up and all these different things happening in like early April. And I was just like, you all are just shooting your shot way too early. Like,
Hmm.
and people are gonna have an adverse reaction. Like, I want to see where people respond and how they react when they are a month in for real, and then be able and then respond versus anything more.
That's
Uh,
really smart. I was not that smart. We definitely did a bunch of webinars because I was foolishly thinking, just like totally thought computers were dumb, I totally think this was going to be like, oh, like a couple of months and we're back out. I wasn't thinking like, oh, right, this doesn't just go away. We actually need some kind of a vaccine and a cure or whatever. So I was thinking 2 months. So let's not sit around. Let's do something. Uh, but you're right, being more measured and learning from others and others, sort of mistakes would be helpful, hence the data part. But I didn't do that. I just like, oh, let's just do these webinars and do these things. And, it was an interesting beginning in, beginning of April. I think things have definitely settled in. Do you see that as well?
yeah, I think now people are real. I'll give you some examples. I'm part of a awesome female founders group, and we have a monthly event. And come June, we're back to charging. So we stopped charging to do for virtual events for April and May, but come June, we're back to normal because we're like, you're getting the same super high quality of people speaking. You're getting all the really good conversations. We're doing like a little coffee talk after the panel, like we would do the networking after the event. You're getting all of that. The only thing you're not getting is the bagel and the coffee. So
Right.
why am I not going to charge you for this? Like, it's not like we're doing something that nobody else is doing. Everyone's doing Zoom meetings now. So there's nothing weird about this. So this is just like going through previously, everyone's doing in-person meetings and I would choose to pay for the event. So it's the same premise. I'm going to choose to pay for the event because for the rest of the year, that's what the events are going to be. And,
And you're putting effort, right, to put these
like this
things
isn't,
together. Yeah.
it's even harder. I mean, it's even harder to figure out, if you want to go over the wall, top of like, proper Zoom, custom Zoom backgrounds and all the other stuff that we're kind of doing for clients. It's like there's even more effort being put in this so that this, has to feel more actionable and, more heartfelt because we want people to feel good about the situation, considering the weird situation we're all in. So yeah, they'll pay for that now. So I definitely think we've definitely hit that, like, this is the way things are going to be right now. So let's act as normal as we possibly can. And if that means that now we're back to charging for events, yeah, absolutely.
And I do believe in you get what you pay for too, right? Like it's an effort and it's time and it's finding the right people, it's preparation, all that, and you value your time. So I think that's really important. And there's a space and a time for when, things are introductory and free versus when you are investing in yourself as the attendee of that event, for sure. Very cool.
Awesome. So what would you tell 25-year-old Anya, looking back on all the stuff you've had to do?
Oh my God. Well, first of all, I guess most important advice would be to take it all in because it's going to get worse in 2020. Uh, Live your life the way that you are, but take, looking back, a lot of people say, well, what would you change? And would you change all these things? I actually liked my entire journey. As crazy as that sounds, as crazy as my journey has been, it really does make me, it's like a cliche, it makes me who I am today. And I've made, certain business decisions that weren't right at the time. I would have told myself to also begin going on your own sooner. But part of the
Ah,
vision of why I decided to make, my own business essentially is because I've been laid off times in my career. And I was laid off when I was 9 months pregnant from big telecom, me and my 5,000 other people. So I didn't feel singled out.
But 9 months pregnant was wow.
It was challenging and I was definitely worried. But what I quickly realized is I did get a great severance. I think they felt bad. The timing
Justifiably.
wasn't looking good. It allowed me, interestingly, in retrospect, to reset my thinking. And I started making twice as much money after I literally 6 months of being off. I said, oh, I undervalued myself. I had time to think, to do a little research. My mom was super helpful. The reason I had time to think was because my mom stayed with my daughter, helped me do that. But I wish I realized my worth. And it's not only financial. I don't mean that in any way that success is only tied to dollars. But I just wish I realized you can do this on your own. I should have done it sooner. I waited a little too long, I think. I mean, I'm grateful where I am now, but that would be my advice. If you're contemplating something, certainly plan for it financially if you can, because it is a rough go at the beginning. But do it, and do it sooner. Don't wait too long. Don't wait for the pandemic.
Well, speaking of which, now that we're in the middle of this pandemic, what in the world are you doing for your self-care?
So I do a lot of Zoom meetings, happy hours, book clubs with my friends. I am lucky to live, in a suburb where I have a backyard. I'm able to go outside and go for walks, and I'm able to I will tell you what I quickly realized for self-care is I turn my computer off after a certain time. Now it does fluctuate depending on the business who I need to talk to, but usually by 7 o'clock, I have to do that. Otherwise, I wasn't necessarily more productive, but I was certainly online a lot at the beginning. We work from home from time to time. It wasn't unusual, but I felt like there was no beginning and no end to a day. I'm sure a lot of people who work from home feel the same way. I've heard this, so I'm pretty sure it's not just me. Set some boundaries and have time for yourself. Yes, you're still in the house. Yes, you're not able to do stuff, but sometimes just turn it off and do something different than your work or whatever it is that you do online. And be grateful that you are at home. I mean, I'm grateful for other people that have to go to work on my behalf. I appreciate them more.
Yeah, I think that's very much it. Like, you've got to take away the Zoom overload, or you won't get anything done. Because
Yeah.
people, well, I'm on all these different things back to back to back. Oh my God, what have I done?
Yeah, and you're like
Uh,
just constantly on all the time. And what else do we do in our life? It's all electronic, TV, phone, laptop, Zoom. Sometimes just if you can, I have to give her a shout out to a friend of mine who does meditation sessions every single day at 7:30. And I haven't made too many, but she's been amazing. And if you can do something like that for yourself, the times I've joined, I was just so like, oh, why don't I do this all the time? I need this. So.
awesome, really cool. So, as part of my uh, series of interviews during this very unusual time, I'm asking my guests if they have a give and or an ask to the audience. So, Anya, what's your give or your ask?
Well, what my give would be is I would love to talk to anybody who has any questions about what the space of analytics is to begin with. We do lots of what else? Zoom meetings, webinars, and just free advice on like better understanding that space, including if this is a space you want to have a career in. So I know we're in a time where people are worried about their jobs. Even before COVID, lots of people were changing careers, and analytics was very much on top of what employers were looking for. If you're interested to know about it, reach out. I'm happy to set up a time to just talk to you about it and tell you more about what you can do to either pivot your business or your career, and see where that goes.
Awesome. That is a wonderful give to the audience. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Well, yeah, it's been a delight to have you on the show. I mean, we've been chatting for quite some time. We can keep on chatting, but we'll definitely throw your information in the show notes so folks can reach out to you and you can share some of your incredible analytics wisdom with them. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. It was lovely speaking with you as well. It's been fun.
Awesome. And that is our show.